She walked into the luxury store hoping to find the perfect dress, but was immediately stopped by security. "We don't have space for people like you here," the attendant said, looking her up and down with disdain. The woman, her heart racing and her face flushed with shame, tried to protest, but her words were drowned out by the guard's air of superiority, as he was already pushing her out. With one last sigh of frustration, she turned toward the door, but not before whispering almost under her breath, "Maybe I shouldn't be treated this way, but you'll see me again." The discrimination was obvious. What no one knew was that this woman wasn't just any customer. She was the owner of the brand. The clock struck 10:30 a.m. in Beverly Hills when Maria Alvarez parked her car on Rodeo Drive, one of the most famous and luxurious streets in Los Angeles. The sun reflected off the immaculate windows of the great international brands, where every detail seemed designed to scream exclusivity. Maria adjusted the bag on her shoulder and took a deep breath before crossing the street. That day, she wanted something special, to choose a unique piece to celebrate a quiet achievement she had kept only for herself. As she pushed open the glass door of a renowned international store, she was not greeted with a smile but with quick, judgmental glances from head to toe. James Whitmore, the security guard in a black suit and tight tie, blocked her entry with a firm arm. "Ma'am, the store is only for clients," he said, as if each word were a wall erected to separate her from that space. Maria blinked, confused. "I am a client," she replied in a low but firm voice. James crossed his arms, lifting his chin. "I don't think this is the right place for you." Maria's heart raced. She looked around, seeing blonde women with elegant shopping bags being served champagne and smiles. The difference in treatment was glaring. A saleswoman with a badge that read Anna approached. Her gaze was even sharper than the guards. "Perhaps you should look for something more affordable. There are outlets in Glendale. That might be more suitable," she said without lowering her voice, causing two nearby customers to chuckle discreetly. Maria felt her face burn, as if each laugh were a flame scorching her skin. She tried to speak, but her throat seemed locked. There was something humiliating in being judged not for who she was, but for what she represented in their eyes. Just another Mexican trying to occupy a space they believed didn't belong to her. She gripped her bag tightly, inhaled deeply, and stepped forward. "I just want to see the dresses," she said, trying to keep her dignity intact. James didn't move. "Please, don't insist." The air was suffocating with tension. Maria felt every pair of eyes on her, some curious, others clearly satisfied with the scene. It was as if she had trespassed into forbidden territory, a place where her skin, her light accent, and even her silence were used against her. With effort, she stepped back, but before leaving, she lifted her gaze and let slip a phrase charged with strange calm. "You shouldn't treat people like this. One day you'll regret it." James smirked briefly, but cruelly. "Good luck, ma'am." Maria pushed the door open and stepped out, the warm California air hitting her face like a punch. She walked slowly to her car, her eyes brimming, but refusing to let a tear fall. The noise of the street, the engines of luxury cars, and the hurried heels of clients echoed like mockery. In the driver's seat, she took a deep breath and closed her eyes. Her mother's voice, still back in Mexico, came to mind. "Never lower your head, Maria. They may try to belittle you, but they can't take away what you've built." Clutching the wheel tightly, she repeated to herself, "They don't know who they're dealing with." Inside the store, Anna and James resumed their routine, laughing together as if they had carried out a trivial task. The manager, Mr. Thompson, watched from a distance, oblivious to the gravity of the scene. To them, it was just another woman who didn't fit in. But outside, destiny moved silently. Maria was not just any customer. What those employees didn't realize was that the brand displayed in the windows had much more to do with her than they could ever imagine. As she started the car, Maria looked once more at the store's facade. Her heart still raced, a mix of pain and anger, but inside her something even stronger was growing. The need to show who she truly was, not just to those who humiliated her, but to everyone who had ever believed she didn't belong in places like that. Little by little, the humiliation transformed into a silent promise, not of cheap revenge, but of revelation. Something was about to happen. Maria drove to a nearby cafe, but instead of feeling any relief, the weight of discrimination only grew heavier with each passing second. The cafe was crowded, most tables occupied by well-dressed women laughing and chatting about the latest fashion collections. Maria sat in the farthest corner, trying not to draw attention. She had come to Los Angeles with a dream, but that dream now seemed farther away than ever. She was a middle-class woman with a difficult past and a constant fight for survival, yet she felt that, because of who she was, destiny never seemed to be in her favor. She ordered a coffee and watched the conversations around her, losing herself in other people's words and laughter as if trying to blend into a world where she had always felt like an intruder. Life had taught her she had to be stronger, braver, but she had never learned how to make herself heard when the world seemed unwilling to give her space. And at that moment, Maria realized something profound. Her status, her last name, her origin, all of it seemed like a sentence to invisibility. The waiter approached and, as he served her, couldn't avoid a look of judgment. It was no longer a matter of not being accepted, but of being seen as inferior in a space where she struggled to belong. He handed her the bill with an impersonal gesture and before leaving muttered without looking at her, "Are you sure you can pay for this?" The words hit her like a punch to the stomach. Maria swallowed her anger but couldn't stop a tear from slipping down her face. She didn't want anyone to see her fragile, but at that moment she felt reduced to something she knew she would never be. She gripped the cup tightly, the warmth of the coffee mixing with the tension in her chest. The waiter passed by again without even noticing her presence. Maria felt an urge to stand up and run out of that place, but instead, she paid the bill and left with her head held high. The fresh air outside hit her, and she closed her eyes for a moment, absorbing the silence around her. But the discomfort soon became even more tangible. As she stepped onto the street, a well-dressed woman carrying a designer bag bumped into Maria and, without apologizing, shoved her hard enough to almost send her into the asphalt. Already carrying the weight of discrimination on her shoulders, Maria found herself forced to apologize for something she hadn't done. The woman, however, didn't even look back, continuing on her hurried way. It was in that moment Maria realized she wasn't just a woman shaken by discrimination. She was being scorned by the very society she lived in. The women around her, with their flawless appearances and automatic smiles, were reflections of a world that believed she had no right to be anything beyond her looks. But Maria knew something had to change. Not that day, not in that moment, but in time. She would change her own reality. She picked up her phone and glanced at a notification. Her stomach turned when she saw the email from her company saying that, unfortunately, the contract she had fought so hard to sign would not be renewed. She had tried, fought against adversity, but now she found herself once again without options. Her heart sank as she read the cold words of the email. "We appreciate your efforts, but the current situation does not favor your continuity with us. We wish you success." The tears came again, but this time, instead of letting them fall, Maria made a silent promise. She would no longer be a victim. She no longer wanted to be seen as someone who merely tried. She was going to succeed no matter how hard it was. She knew the doors would continue to close, but she also knew that eventually those doors would open for her. And when that happened, no one would be able to stop her. As she returned to her car, Maria felt a void she had never experienced before. She drove aimlessly through the streets of Los Angeles, the tall buildings around her like walls swallowing her hope. She passed Rodeo Drive once more, and without meaning to, her gaze was drawn to the store where she had been humiliated hours earlier. With an ironic smile, she thought that maybe it was there her true future would begin to take shape. Before continuing to drive, she paused for a moment and looked at herself in the rearview mirror. What she saw was no longer the defeated, humiliated woman. It was someone different, stronger, more determined. She knew her true fight was only just beginning. The sun was already sinking on the horizon when Maria parked once again in front of Rodeo Drive. The same street that had witnessed her humiliation that morning now seemed lit by a different energy. The shop windows sparkled under the artificial lights, as if mocking the pain she had felt. But inside her, something had changed. She was no longer the woman who swallowed her pride in silence. She was someone beginning to claim the space that had always belonged to her. She walked slowly along the sidewalk, watching tourists take photos and elegant couples strolling hand in hand. Her heart pounded not with shame or anger, but with anticipation. Maria did not come as a client. She came as someone carrying a truth powerful enough to turn any table. Across the street, the same luxury store remained open, bustling with attentive guards and saleswomen smiling at selected customers. Maria crossed the street with determination. her firm steps echoing against the marble pavement. James, the security guard, frowned as he saw her approaching. "You again?" he said, raising his arm to block her once more. "Wasn't it clear this place isn't for you?" Maria locked eyes with his cold stare. A heavy silence settled between them, broken only by the murmur of the street. Without blinking, she pulled a golden badge from her bag. The embossed logo gleamed under the shop window's light. "This place has always been for me," she replied firmly. James blinked, confused, but kept his arm raised. At that moment, a deep voice interrupted. "What's going on here?" asked Mr. Thompson, the store manager, striding over quickly. His tailored suit and impatient expression showed he was used to being obeyed. James pointed at Maria. "This woman insists on coming in." Maria held up the badge again. "Maybe it's best if you take a closer look at this." Thompson took the badge, read it carefully, and the color drained from his face. The card read, Maria Alvarez, founder and CEO. The same store logo stamped across the top. Silence overtook the entrance. James's eyes widened, and for a moment he seemed speechless. Maria stood firm, though her heart felt like it might explode inside her. That badge wasn't just a card. It was living proof that she never needed permission to exist in places like this. "This must be some mistake," Thompson stammered, trying to regain composure. Maria gave a faint smile. "There is no mistake. I own this brand, and I will not accept any employee treating anyone the way I was treated today." Nearby customers began to gather, curious. Whispers spread through the luxurious space. What had been a scene of rejection now turned into a public spectacle. "Owner of the brand?" repeated one of the customers, holding a shopping bag full of purchases. Maria nodded. "Yes, and I know exactly what it's like to be looked at as if I don't belong here. That's why I created this company, to prove that elegance has no skin color, no passport, no accent." Anna, the saleswoman who had mocked her earlier, emerged among the customers, pale, her eyes wide. She stuttered, searching for words, but none came. James, still frozen, seemed to wish he could disappear into the marble floor. Maria turned to him. "Do you remember what you told me this morning? That this wasn't the right place for me? Well, now know this place is so mine that I could close it tomorrow if I wanted." The air grew heavy, and for a few seconds no one breathed. Thompson wiped his sweaty forehead with a handkerchief. "Ms. Alvarez, please come with me to the office. I'm sure we can clear this up." "There's nothing to clear up," Maria cut in. Her voice didn't rise, but each word carried the weight of 1,000 truths. "There's only something to be learned, and I hope it starts today." She walked into the store without asking permission, each step echoing as a reminder that here stood someone underestimated for far too long. Customers made way, some whispering, others staring in admiration. As she advanced down the main aisle, Maria remembered her mother, her childhood in rural Mexico, the days spent sewing clothes for hours to help with expenses. Every stitch, every piece of fabric had been a brick in the construction of this moment. It wasn't just clothes that bore her name, but an entire life of invisible effort. She reached the central counter, where Anna still stood. Maria stopped in front of her, her gaze unwavering. "You told me to look for something more affordable. Know this. The word affordable should never be used to exclude, but to include." Anna opened her mouth, but Thompson silenced her with a hard look. The manager now seemed a smaller man, crushed by his own error. Maria took a deep breath and slowly turned, looking at everyone around her. "Today I was stopped here because of my skin, my accent, my origin. That's not just an offense against me. It's an offense against every client who walks through these doors. This brand was created to break barriers, not build walls." A respectful silence filled the store. Some customers clapped softly, others simply watched, but no one remained indifferent. The atmosphere had shifted. Maria was no longer the woman humiliated in the morning. She was the true owner, revealing her identity in front of all. And yet, inside her, something whispered that this was only the first part of the fight. The revelation was done, but the weight of change still had to fall on those who insisted on keeping old wounds open. The store's office was on an upper floor, isolated from the elegant noise of Rodeo Drive. Maria was led there not out of submission, but by choice. She wanted to hear within four walls what the manager had to say after the public humiliation. The space was impeccable. Mahogany furniture framed historic images of the brand. and a glass desk that reflected the tension in the air. Mr. Thompson closed the door behind him, breathing deeply, as if searching for words that would not come easily. He sat across from Maria, still trying to maintain an air of authority, but the sweat on his forehead and the slight tremor in his hands betrayed him. "Ms. Alvarez," he began, his voice faltering, "I want to apologize on behalf of the team. Surely there was a misunderstanding." Maria leaned forward, her eyes locked on him. "A misunderstanding?" she repeated without raising her voice. "A misunderstanding is when someone gets another person's name wrong. What happened to me was discrimination. Clear, explicit, and cruel." Thompson swallowed hard. "I understand." "No, you don't understand," Maria interrupted. "You don't know what it's like to walk into a place and be judged not by what you wear, but by what you are. You don't know what it's like to have your skin red as an obstacle." The silence that followed seemed suffocating. Thompson avoided her gaze, fiddling nervously with a golden pen. Maria continued, steady. "Today I wasn't treated as a client. I was treated as an intruder. And if it were just me, maybe I'd endure it in silence. But I know that every day others go through the same thing. People who come here believing they can dream, only to be told they're not worthy even of looking at a dress on display." The office door opened suddenly. James, the security guard, entered hesitantly, accompanied by Anna, the saleswoman. Thompson cleared his throat, trying to regain control. "Come in. Perhaps it's best if everyone hears this." James kept his eyes down, as if unwilling to face the woman he had thrown out hours earlier. Anna, on the other hand, looked terrified, her perfect lipstick now smudged by nerves. Maria studied them for a long moment before speaking. "I want you to repeat here in front of me what you said earlier. I want to hear again the words you used to push me away." Anna shook her head, denying. I was only following protocol." "Protocol?" Maria arched her eyebrows. "What protocol tells you to suggest a woman look for outlets because she doesn't seem capable of shopping here?" Anna stayed silent. James cleared his throat, but no words came. Their silence was the loudest confession. Maria breathed deeply. "You may try to hide behind excuses, but what you did today was inhumane. You reduced me to a stereotype. And when you do that, it's not just me. It's an entire community." James finally lifted his head. "I didn't know who you were," he muttered. Maria leaned closer. "And if I were just a teacher, a housekeeper, a nanny, would I have less value as a human being?" The words fell like stones, and no one dared to answer. James's face flushed red, and Anna clutched her chest, struggling to breathe evenly. Thompson wiped his forehead for the second time, shrinking further into his chair. Maria rose slowly. "I'm not going to fire anyone today, not because you don't deserve it, but because I want you to carry the memory of this moment. I want you to know that the woman you expelled came back as the owner. I want you to understand that power doesn't lie in expensive clothes or foreign surnames, but in character and dignity." She moved toward the window, gazing at the illuminated avenue outside. "And I expect that from today forward no customer will be treated the way I was. If it happens again, then this store will cease to exist." A heavy silence filled the office. Maria turned, looking each one in the eye. Her gaze was steady, not consumed by uncontrolled anger, but grounded in undeniable truth. Anna began to cry softly. James looked away, unable to bear the weight of her words. Thompson stood slowly, finally broken. "Ms. Alvarez," he said, almost voiceless. We failed." Maria walked to the door, opened it, and paused for a moment. "No, you didn't fail me. You failed what this brand is supposed to represent." And she left, leaving behind a silence that would never be forgotten. In the main hall, customers were still discussing what had happened. Some looked at Maria with admiration, others with surprise. But all understood they had witnessed something greater than a mere store argument. It was the naked exposure of what many prefer not to see, the ingrained prejudice that insists on surviving in luxury spaces. Maria walked past them with her head held high, unhurried. Each step sounded like an echo of victory, not only personal, but collective. The next morning, the streets of Beverly Hills were as busy as ever, but something had changed. The sparkle of the shop windows seemed a little softer, as if, somehow, the city was breathing differently. Maria felt it as she walked past them again, now with an unexpected lightness. She was no longer adrift, fighting against the tide of prejudice and humiliation. Without realizing it, she had taken the first step toward a silent revolution, not just for herself, but for everyone who faced similar situations. The phone rang earlier than usual. Maria looked at the screen and saw the name Samuel Hawkins, one of the country's biggest fashion investors. He was known for putting money only into the most exclusive brands, the ones that lived in a world where appearance and status meant everything. That call was anything but ordinary, and she knew it. "Ms. Alvarez, I'd like to speak with you about the brand. I think there's something you need to know," he began, his voice calm but carrying a weight that was impossible to ignore. Maria knew what was coming. She had been in meetings like this before, where men in suits talked about image building and the luxury market. But something about the way Samuel spoke felt different, as if his world was about to change. What happened yesterday in the store wasn't just a mistake. I realized that when I received the videos, the images, and the messages that quickly started circulating online, it created too big of a stir to ignore. He paused, as if preparing for the impact of his words. "Maria, your story and the way you faced discrimination made me rethink my priorities. I'm ready to help take your brand to a new level, a level where exclusivity is no longer just a privilege for a few." Maria took a deep breath. Surprise began to blend with relief. This was what she wanted. She didn't want the brand to be only about sales and status. She wanted it to be about transformation, about breaking barriers and changing perceptions. And now, she had the chance to do exactly that. "What are you proposing, Samuel?" Maria asked, her voice steady but tinged with curiosity. "I'm talking about a major investment. We'll launch a new line, a revolutionary concept where diversity and inclusion will be the pillars. I want you to lead it. We'll put your brand on the great international runways, not because you have money or influence, but because you represent what fashion truly needs now. Real people, with real stories, reflecting the different faces of society. You have something no one else does, Maria, and I want to bet on that." Maria leaned back in her chair, feeling the tension slowly fade. She knew she was at a crossroads, but this time, the decision was hers. She had gone from someone trying to fit in to someone creating her own space. The brand would no longer be just about profit, but about something deeper. "I accept, Samuel. But the condition is that this project must be about true inclusion, not marketing stereotypes. I want my story to be part of it, but I also want the stories of so many other women who, like me, were made invisible, to be heard." "No doubt, Maria. This will only be the beginning," he replied with renewed conviction. The call ended, but Maria remained seated for a few moments, absorbing the magnitude of what had just happened. She knew it wasn't only she who had changed. The world around her was beginning to shift as well. That evening, the luxury store in Beverly Hills made a public revelation. It wasn't a big press conference nor an extravagant party. Instead, Maria was invited to a private interview with local and international journalists, where she told her story. Not just the story of the woman stopped at the door of a luxury store, but the story of the woman who decided to take control of her destiny. In the interview, Maria spoke about her roots in Mexico, about the difficulties of settling in a country that didn't always see her as equal, about how she had been persistent in her fight even when doors slammed in her face. She spoke about her brand and how, despite being a luxury company, it would no longer be complicit in exclusion. She wanted women to see their value, not the price on a tag. Inclusion and diversity would be the new luxury. In the days that followed, the response was overwhelming. Sales skyrocketed, but more importantly, the brand became recognized as a symbol of change. From a world where only privilege had a voice, Maria had created a voice of resistance, a silent but powerful cry from all the women and men who, over the years, had been rejected by those same closed doors. She was invited to countless TV interviews, fashion shows, and industry events. But the most important changes were happening behind the cameras. The space that had once been about exclusivity was now one of true representation. Maria had not only overcome discrimination, she had proven that real strength lies in remaining authentic, in refusing to let prejudice define your worth. At that moment, as she walked through Beverly Hills, Maria knew her story was not just about her. It was about everyone who had come before her, everyone who would come after, and everyone who would finally see themselves represented. She no longer had anything to prove. The world now saw her. And you? Have you ever been judged only by your appearance or origin? Share your story in the comments because your voice matters and can inspire others facing the same. If this story touched your heart, hit the like button so more people can hear this powerful message, and subscribe to the channel, because every video here is made to remind you that no one should be defined by prejudice, but by their strength and dignity.